Nationwide, 79% of U.S. adults classify as literate. 21% of adults classify as illiterate, and 54% of U.S. adults have a literacy rate below a sixth grade level. Low levels of literacy cost the U.S. an estimated $2.2 trillion a year. All of this according to Think Impact, which is a free resource dedicated to education and career statistics, trends, and data. John Feldman is the CEO of Visionary Literary, which has a passion for bringing more impactful books to the world. The mission of the company is to create more impactful books that bring meaningful differences to the world. Feldman's passion for literacy happened thanks to a close friend named Greg. And he joined me this week to talk about the company itself, his connection to his good friend Greg, and how we can improve literacy and people's passion for books and reading in America and around the world. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation. John, if you're ready, I'll take a moment to welcome you to the program, and I'm super excited to learn about your journey in literacy, buddy, and how you help to inspire people to reading and books, buddy. Great to see you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
And thank you for having me, Kevin. Again, really excited to be here.
Absolutely, and I know that you're the CEO of Visionary Literary, my friend, that works to inspire people by creating books with inspiring messages. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the good work that you do.
Absolutely, yeah. So I work for a company, CEO of Visionary Literary, and we help people to create books, mostly nonfiction books. So people who are successful industry experts, public speakers who have a message to share and want to share that message through a book, but don't necessarily have the time to write or the knowledge to publish. We kind of come in and help in any way needed.
Absolutely. And John, tell me about the importance of sort of engaging more people in the passion of reading and how important you think that is.
I think it's huge. So for me personally, I mean, me and basically every other, when I was in high school and every single high school kid, you dread reading because it's textbook reading, and the whole concept of reading seems to be forced and belabored. But then once I got out of college is when I really started to read. So when Rich Dad, Poor Dad was the first book that I read. And it just opened my eyes, and I've been reading nonstop ever since, both fiction and nonfiction. I really think that it's so important, not only for people to want to read, because it does so much for you. There's so many different things that you can do when you read and you expand your knowledge base. But I think it's also very, very important for people who have knowledge to put their knowledge into a book. So, for example, someone who has started a company and led it to great massive success and great company culture, etc. Write a book that helps others who aspire to be like you. Write a book that helps them navigate that path so that everyone's not so lost behind you. So just throw down that lifeline and help others who are, again, aspiring to be where you are today.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I know that this work for you was inspired by your late friend Greg, who wanted to write a movie about your life, buddy. So tell me about Greg and the passion that he ignited in you personally, my friend.
Yeah, so Greg was a good friend, and he was my college roommate. He unfortunately passed away too early at 29 years old, but he just one day, and we were either juniors or seniors in college, I can't remember. But we were sitting out on the front porch, and he said, we need to write a movie about our lives. This was back when, I don't know if you remember, Kevin, the movie Superbad was kind of a funny movie at the time, funny popular movie, and we thought that we had a story to tell, and we thought our life was fun. But so I wrote that screenplay. It still sits in my drawer and collects dust because nothing else ever came of it other than my passion for writing. So after that, I went into writing multiple screenplays, multiple short stories, novels. And then that's when I really, just trying to earn a better living, I got into nonfiction ghostwriting, which is writing. So a ghostwriter is someone pays me to write their work, and then their name goes on the cover. So I'm basically a ghost in the process, but the money was better. And what I really found was that the conversations I was having, the networking that I was able to do, and the people I was able to speak with, absolutely incredible. So a long journey, but again, it all started with Greg's words that we should write a story about our life. And I'm very, very thankful that he was in my life at that moment.
Well, John, I see there some stuff behind you in your office, my friend. You should frame that play for inspiration, don't you think so?
I probably should. I should have a little, picture of Greg here on my desk. But yeah, there are many things that I hang on my wall. I get too cluttered, and my wife yells at me and says, "Simple is better."
Well, a happy wife equals a happy life, right?
That's right, Kevin.
That's exactly right. And John, I'm curious to ask you, how do we sort of ignite the passion of writing in more people? Because, I went to school to become a sports journalist originally, and I love communication and writing and authentic communication. But tell me, how do you think we can ignite the passion of writing in more young people as well?
So I think that if someone finds, again, for young people going to school, when you're told to write or to read, it seems like a forced process, and you're told to write and read on and in areas that you're not interested in. For instance, write this 5-page history paper. If you don't like history, that's going to seem like a daunting task. But take you, for example. You're a sports journalist, right, Kevin?
And yes, originally, yeah.
So you loved sports and you wanted to write about sports. So writing to you wasn't daunting. You loved it, right? And I think that's what, if anyone wants to get into writing, I think that they need to find what they're passionate about, even if it's just journaling about their life and having that kind of mental release from their day. If they journal at the end of the day, some way that you can just make writing not such a daunting, belaboring, dreaded task.
Yeah, and John, when I look at the world today, everything is digitalized.
Yes.
And I guess the original appeal has sort of wavered when we talk about writing. So how do we sort of interweave sort of the digital world, but also still stay still stay connected to sort of the original principles of writing? How do you think we can weave the two to be effective? I'm fascinated to get your answer.
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I think that I think they can both coexist. So, for example, the idea of NFTs, That's something that we've been helping clients with. So turning their books into NFT books. The world will always be coming up with new and unique ways to provide content or to create new content, whether it's digital or physical, probably mostly digital now. But I think that when you look at studies or research showing annual book sales, like print books are not going anywhere. Back in 2007, 2008, when the Kindle was released and then the Nook, everyone, me included, thought, oh my goodness, this is going to be the end of books after centuries of physical books. This is going to be the end. And it wasn't. And print books still remain the same. So I think there will always be an audience for the physical book, but going to digital, whether it's ebooks or the NFTs, or just if it's not even books, if you're tweeting or creating blogs or Instagram captions, I think that there's so much content being produced today and so much need for and desire for that content. So I think that there will always be a place, whether again it is physical or digital, for the content that anyone wants to write.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, you had mentioned that you now have been in this line of work for about a decade now, and you, as you had mentioned, you have a wide variety of the stuff that you've written, from ghost plays to books to people's first-hand accounts of their own stories. So tell me, when you look at the sort of portfolio of everything you've done, I'm curious, what's been your most proudest professional moment?
I think honestly, the proudest was completing my first fiction book, which, as I look back at it now, the writing was not great, and any writer will tell you this. But as your work and the years progress, you get much better. But although that wasn't my best writing in my first fiction book, which is called Bridgevine, that was my proudest moment, because that took, I think, 2.5 years to put together, to write, to edit, to get everything out there. It was it was a proud moment for me. As I move in and shift into my professional career and for ghostwriting, I think my proudest moments were I was able to ghostwrite for an NFL player, which was really, really cool. Sitting on a Zoom call with someone that I watched on the field some years prior, and then a business partner of Sam Zell. So he's basically a billionaire banker. And then several war veterans. One was actually a World War II vet. He was 96 years old when I spoke with him, and still sharp and bright. And it was just a very, very, very cool experience.
Yeah, absolutely. And, John, talking to you, I can see the passion you have for writing and really diving into it as a career. So, for anyone watching or listening to this, I'm curious to get your thoughts on, what do you think it is to embrace writing as successfully as a career? And what I mean by that is, what advice would you have for someone that really wants to dive into this line of work and make it their full-time way to make a living? I'm fascinated.
Yeah, for anyone who wants to make a living as a writer, I think so many people they decide that they have a great idea for a book or a series of books, and they write and they publish, and they're sadly a little bit disheartened at the monetary return, and they still need to work a part-time job or a full-time job. And I think that if any writer out there who wants to be a full-time writer, I would highly, highly suggest embracing ghostwriting. The money that can be made in ghostwriting, if you are a good writer and if you can get with the right clientele, you can make from 4 figures to 5 figures, and professional, really good ghostwriters make 6 figures, $200,000 plus, if you're writing for a celebrity. So there's just, again, the networking that comes with ghostwriting is so incredible, and the money is something that you can actually survive on compared to fiction writing.
Yeah, and John, doing the research for this conversation, I came across this stat from a website called Think Impact, which tracks sort of educational and career statistics, and it said across America, 21% of U.S. adults are illiterate. So I'm curious to get your thoughts on the importance of creating resources for increased literacy education for adults today, because I found it to be interesting to see that adults still have work to do when it comes to their comprehension of reading and writing. So tell me about the importance of creating resources to get a more literal and literate society. I'm fascinated to get your opinion there as well.
Yeah, so Kevin, my answer is going to be maybe a little bit different than you might expect, but I think I personally think that the way that we write inside of any kind of book, especially so nonfiction books that we write, that we create today, we are not writing as if we're writing an English paper in high school or college. That sort of writing, the laws of the English language do not progress with the way that we speak, right? So that when one of the things that we tell anyone who comes to us for writing advice is to write like you speak, write as if you're having a conversation. Short, punchy sentences, they can be 1 or 2 words, it doesn't matter. So if you go to an editor, they might want to rip their hair out, or an English teacher, but I think that if you make reading more fun and more engaging and more relatable based on the words and the way that they're written on the paper, I think that reading and literacy can really excel because of it. But I think that if we continue to harp on the laws and the rules of English 101 that were, put in place however many decades ago, it's not relatable to the way that we speak today. And I think that if we, again, embrace the creative writing, it could really help.
Yeah, and John, when we look at writing and communications, one of the reasons that I was so passionate to become a communications major in college was because you get lost in sort of the story and the imagination of writing. So tell me about how that can have a positive impact on your overall life, because I think when you get lost in sort of the adventure of a story, it can really have an impact on the rest of your life. Would you agree with that?
Oh, absolutely. I think that just by reading and expanding your mind, you open up a new world. Like, you see the world differently. Whether that's a fiction book and you're reading some kind of fantasy book and it's not real, or a fiction book where you can relate to a situation and you can place yourself in the shoes of the writer, it opens your mind to so many different viewpoints, so many different scenarios. It just can really, again, help you approach life in a more positive manner. I feel like that's how it helps me.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, I'm also curious to ask you, for the people that you work with, have you really seen a difference in sort of their passion for the writing and reading process when you tell them that you're really invested in their own personal story? I'm curious to ask you about whether you've seen an increased level of passion for the people that you work with when you talk about reading and writing their own personal story.
Yeah, I think that the increased passion really lies not necessarily in the writing, because for most, I'd say for 70+% of the people that we work with, our ghostwriters do the writing. So it's not necessarily the passion for writing, but it's the passion for knowing that they are building a tool that can mentor others. So mentorship is very popular today. It's big. But the one-on-one conversations that you can have with someone who you are a mentor to, they take up time. And you only have so much time in a day. You can't mentor hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of people. It's just not possible. But if you put all the advice, all the generic advice that you would give to in those mentor sessions into a book, you spend the time once to give that advice. And then anyone that needs advice from you, rather than turn them away because you don't have the time, you can simply give them a copy of your book or point them in the direction. And then that gives them the basis, probably answers majority of their questions. And if they need additional support, then you can mentor them outside of that specific lane that you place them in when you hand them a book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I also know that you're the host of a podcast entitled The Self-Published Success. So tell me about the show and what it is all about, my friend. I'm fascinated.
Yeah, so we as a company and me personally have self-published many books, and there are just so many things that you can learn self-publishing. And then this is also, self-publishing is very new. It's only a decade or so old, and there are constantly evolutions and changes coming within. So what we like to do is, it's a weekly podcast. We interview people who are authors, who are self-published authors, who can provide insight, can provide tips to the listeners who are aspiring writers or who are getting ready to maybe self-publish again. But it's really just to eliminate the stigma that comes with self-publishing as being amateur, and provide a resource for writers, for those who want to publish their work, to publish it and have the absolute most success that they can have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm curious, since you brought it up, what do you think is the key to successfully self-publishing a book?
I think the main key is to realize that hitting publish is just the beginning. So it takes a lot of work to write a book, to edit a book. Going back even before the writing is the outlining. So outlining, writing, editing, working with a cover designer, doing the back cover copy, all of that work just to be able to hit publish is just the start, because there are the numbers fluctuate between 700,000 and 1.2 million, but that's the number of new books that are released every year. So if you publish a book and you put it up on Amazon and you're excited and you kick back and you hope that the royalties are just going to start pouring in, that's not going to be the case. So the most important thing to do after you hit publish. So that's the marketing, the promotion, getting on podcasts like yours, Kevin, and then just being guest blogs, social media strategy, paid ads. There are many, many, many different avenues to go, but that is, and that's something that we help with at our company through the podcast, and then through some of our own efforts as well. But yes, after publish is important.
Yeah, and John, once you publish a book, I'm curious on your thoughts on how it can help you reach certain levels of personal and professional prosperity. What do you think publishing a book can do in terms of creating an asset for success for other people?
Yeah, so personally, it can just be kind of a bucket list check off. So there are 81% of people, 81% of Americans say that they want to write a book, yet only 8% of them ever actually end up doing so. That wide gap is because it's a long process. And if you do just, like I said before, there's a lot of work after you hit publish, but just hitting that publish button is a major milestone in its own. It puts you into that 8% category and allows you, again, to know that you've succeeded. You've succeeded in that, and then you kind of got yourself out of the 81% and into the 8%. But from a professional standpoint, it helps with your credibility and your authority. So if you are someone, we live in the age where everyone is an influencer. Most people are entrepreneurs or CEOs, right? Like we all kind of fall into this big category, and you need to stand out. And if you place, whether it's your story or some other piece of advice into a book, it really helps.
Yeah, and John, I'm curious to ask you, for you personally, I'm always about challenging myself to be 1% better than I was the day before. So for you personally, how do you challenge yourself to get that 1% better each day?
Kevin, I love that because I'm the same way. I'd like to do one small thing each day that helps to make me better the next day. Too many people, I feel like, rush to success. Like you said, if you just 1% better every day, and you get to where you want to be. So when it comes to writing in a book and something of volume like that, where you're going to write 50, 60,000 words, just do a little bit every day. Don't look at it as a daunting task. 250 words a day, that's one page. 500 words a day, that's 2 pages. You can have a book written in a year, and you can have that, again, that bucket list item. You can have it crossed off because you just take that little bit of time, one step at a time, and you'll finally have your book created.
Yeah, absolutely. And John, my final question for you this morning has to do with your own personal and professional legacy and how you want that to be defined.
Honestly, I want, when people think of me, I want them to think that I helped. I just want to help people. So I have found that books have impacted my life so much. And I know that in my career and going to conferences and speaking with people, 9 out of 10 people say, yeah, I have a book idea too, but I don't know where to start. I don't know what to write. And when I speak to these people, they have great ideas. They have great idea for a book that can help someone. And I want to help them get that book out so that helpful book can be out in the world, and it can help people. So I just want to get as many of these positive messages out into the world so that they can help others.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, John, if people want to get connected with you or the podcast, what's the best way they can do that?
Yeah, so they can find more from me. I'm most active on Twitter. So it's at John_Feldman_. And then if they want to find more about the business and how we help, the website is visionaryliterary.com. We also have, for any listeners who are thinking they're in that 81%, they want to write a book, but they're kind of stuck. If you go to visionaryliterary.com/free book, you can get access to our book. So anyone watching, you see it sitting right here next to me. It's our entire business process. So it takes you from, idea all the way to publication and marketing strategy after the publication. So if you are someone who is thinking about writing a book, that can be a great resource for you to get started.
Well, John, I have to tell you, from a communication and English major, I was really looking forward to having this conversation, and I want to thank you for the good work that you do to promote the need for increased literacy, reading, and writing, my friend. Your work in the space and time on my behalf is most appreciated, and I want to thank you for engaging in conversation with me this morning.
Oh, Kevin, I really appreciate you having me on, and congratulations on this show's success, on your success, and I very, very much appreciate your appreciation for literacy and for writing.